Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
So glad to see you here. I guess we don't have a special musician today. Except for Rick. And he's always special. Sorry. You're saying to me, what am I, chopped liver? No, actually, we have Rick here just about every Sunday of the year, and he is our very special Rick. So glad to have him here. Always dependable. Always tickling those ivories. Dr. Maurita will be speaking today, and if you'll please mute your phones, turn them to silent, turn them off, whatever you like to do. If you please remember to do that. Okay.
Good morning.
Good morning.
No, turn it on. I'm on. But I really am on. Welcome. Thank you so much for being with us today. What a pleasure it is to be together, both here in the sanctuary and all the folks who are looking at us on Facebook and the internet in the next couple of days. We can't be all together physically, but we can't be all together mentally. We can agree on certain things and sort of bolster each other's faith in these things and make it easier. Make it easier for us to stick to those spiritual ideas that change life so much for the better. Well, it's my time to talk about a Bible verse. It's fun to pick them out. Go through the Bible or go through this little book, selected Bible readings that I've had since goodness knows when. Probably 70s or something like that. Well, this morning I want to tell you about this wonderful phrase from 2 Timothy 1:9. It goes, "Who hath called us with an holy calling, according to his own purpose and grace, which was given us in Jesus Christ before the world began." Okay, let's tackle that one more time. Who or what has called us with a holy calling, according to his own purpose and grace, before the world began? God did, of course. The only one who fills the bill here. But the fact that this is saying we have, each and all, a holy calling. And it isn't just a hither and thither choice, but it is in harmony with God's own purpose and his grace. A holy calling. But then it adds that given us in Christ Jesus. Given us in Christ Jesus. In other words, Jesus was the avenue through which we could approach this holy calling. What's the holy calling? It's to be everything that we already are. That we have been since before the world began. It's to fulfill the purpose of our souls, which is what? Why are we here? Life is a school. Love is the lesson. We're here to express that. We're here to learn. We're here to stretch and become ever more of what we really are, which is children of God, which is immortal souls, which is profoundly powerful wondrous, amazing spiritual beings having a physical experience. That's what we are. And this is calling us to do that, to remember what this whole thing is about. Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard to remember that. Oh my goodness, COVID. Oh, people marching the streets for their rights, and just as it should be. People dying. Not having jobs, worrying about where the next meal was coming from. It is an unusual time. It's a tough time. But it's a time of opportunity to get back to our original purpose, our spiritual purpose. It's a good idea to think about that. It brings some reason into all this chaos that we seem to be seeing so much of the time these days. It reminds us of the central idea: I am a child of God. I was made in His image. I am here to learn. I am here to love. I am here to see the good. I am here to bless and benefit anybody and everybody I know, I run into. Well, that's pretty good out of just maybe 3 lines, isn't it? 3 lines to remind us of what it's all about, what we need to hang on to, what feeds us on the inside. Shall we say our divine science statement of being? And there it is. God is all, both invisible and visible. One presence, one mind, one power is all. This one that is all is perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I am the individualized expression of God, and am ever one with this perfect life, perfect love, and perfect substance. I believe you're going to take over for a minute or two. Yes. you, Rick. That was lovely. And now it's time for our healing meditation. Might not be able to do this through the week. Maybe life is just that busy. Oh, you forget. But right now, we can just sit, well, assuming you're sitting down. We're closing our eyes and getting still. Just being. Just basking. Just relaxing. Taking a deep breath. As deep as possible. And letting out slowly, slowly. And finding ourselves unwinding. Our days, even our mornings, early mornings, can be filled with tension. But right now we set that aside. Set the to-do list, oh, I can't forget to, whatever, today. And just sit back and feel this wonderful body. Maybe it's hurting someplace, but as we relax, the pain has a way of ebbing away. And in this place of peace, this moment of quietude, with our eyes closed, concentrating inside rather than all the events outside of us. We take another deep breath. And give thanks for life itself, for having this miraculous, incredibly complex body. This opportunity to express in a certain role or in many roles, to give to life and receive from it the things that are necessary. And right now we give thanks for those necessary things. And the flow of good, the flow of all that is helpful, needful, blessed into our lives. But what we need the most is the understanding, the awareness, the consciousness that we are in the midst of a divine idea unfolding since the beginning of time. An idea wherein we as souls have opportunities to meet certain circumstances, to learn, to grow, to give, to feel the love that is ours, that surrounds us, fills us, God's love. To feel love for our friends and our loved ones, parents, spouses, children, dear friends, neighbors. co-workers. We have the opportunity to feel all that and give thanks that the feeling is a blessing, opportunity, and actual healing for us. As we reach out mentally, we don't have any idea how that just reaching out in love, in connection, in admiration for someone. We don't know how powerful that is in blessing and helping them. Thought is a force, and it is a healing force when it is positive. So right now we reach out to all those dear ones, friends, children, spouses, extended family, and send them love. Send them a word, a spiritual word, and that is love. Send this to them knowing that it touches them and lifts them in ways we don't know. It heals them. And not only do we do this for those who we know so well, who are dear to us, people we live next door to or across the street from, people we work with, matters not whether we are on the best terms with them or not, because this heals relationships, it heals other people. We send it out into our whole country, which is dealing with so much right now. We send it further. We send it across the world to places where life is so hard, harder than we could imagine. We send it to the old and the young. We send it to people who have much and who have little, for they are all our brothers and sisters in God. And in a very subtle and yet miraculous way, we heal and help them. Our love, our outstreaming goodwill to each and all heals, blesses, inspires. Shall we right now, and for the next 90 seconds, reach out in that way? Reach out in outstreaming goodwill, as one of our co-founders put it. Reach out in love. Reach out in connection to each and all with love. Come unto me, all ye who labor and are heavy laden. And goodness knows, some of us feel very heavy laden. Laden with fear, anxiety, laden with what am I going to do next? Or I'm bored out of my gourd staying in so much. Or why are they making so much noise? Or if we choose it, a sense of peace and rightness about what is happening right now. There's reason for it. There's goodness within it. And I trust God in the midst of it all. Certainly we end by giving thanks for all that we have. Giving thanks for the presence of God, the presence of good right where we are. Saying indeed, with love and appreciation, beloved Father, Mother God, let thy will be done in and through me. And thank you for everything. Amen. Now shall we say the Lord's Prayer, the translation Rocco Errico made from the Aramaic. It's so beautiful. Together. Our Father, who is everywhere, your name is sacred, your kingdom is come, your will is throughout the earth, even as it is throughout the universe. You give us our needful day from day to day, and you forgive us our offenses, even as we forgive our offenders. And you let us not enter into materialism, but you separate us from error, because yours are the kingdom, the power, and the song and praise from all ages, throughout all ages, sealed in faith, trust, and truth. Amen. Okay. Today I'm going to be talking about the 10 Commandments, Part 1. Well, not too terribly long ago, someone suggested that I do a class on Emmett Fox's 10 Commandments. Now, she had been rereading it recently and was finding it to be very interesting, very good. Well, I thought about it and decided instead of a class for whom only a few people would probably come, especially in these days, why not do it on Sunday morning when a whole lot more people could see it and hopefully enjoy it? So, we're going to be off on a spiritual adventure. Each time I speak over the next several weeks, we're going to be revisiting that wonderful old story of Moses and the inner meaning of the 10 Commandments. Now, how long is this series going to take? I don't know. I'm not certain. But speed takes a back seat to thoroughness, to a deeper understanding of exactly all the practical as well as the spiritual profound things that are being said. That is the inner meaning of the 10 Commandments. Well, I felt first of all we had to start touching on the background story of the Hebrew people. And for you that's old hat, many of you. And for some of you it's not old hat. This will be perhaps a reminder, or just a little nudge, just, oh yeah, I remember that. Perhaps you remember that Joseph was the favorite son of Isaac, his father. And of course, Isaac had a number of wives. He had a lot of sons. Isaac was, of course, Abraham's son. And so Joseph was his absolute favorite son among all these other men. But Joseph's brothers became so jealous of the attention and praise that this young fellow was getting that they just were consumed with this anger toward him and this jealousy toward him, and they sold him into slavery to some passing Egyptians. They got a little bit of money, and they told their father that he had been brutally eaten by some animal. Well, Joseph was a bright young man. He was very spiritual, and he was talented in many different ways. And through a series of sometimes devastating and sometimes remarkable events, he became the second most powerful person in Egypt, right behind the Pharaoh. He was the second in command. And eventually, his whole family, who had been living in Canaan, of course, came and settled in Egypt. And of course, under the help of and the gifts and special treatment that he would make sure they got. And over a number of generations, they increased greatly in numbers and in prosperity. But, as the Bible says, now there rose up a new king over Egypt who knew not Joseph. By this time, 400 years had passed, and there were literally hundreds of thousands of Hebrews in Egypt. And this new king was very wary of them. He was very uncomfortable about them because he was afraid that if his army was off fighting some war someplace, well, they'd just rise up and take over the whole kingdom from within. And he wasn't going to have anything to do with that, that was for sure. So, what he did was he enslaved the Israelites, the Hebrews. And he forced them into hard labor, making bricks and building cities for him. And they made a very useful labor force. Excellent. But they were so fertile, they kept having children and yet more children. They multiplied and multiplied, and this just frustrated the Pharaoh no end. And so he decreed that every male Hebrew child, infant, should be killed. Not the females, but all the males should be wiped out, killed when they were born. Well, Moses' mother was not about to go along with that. She refused to obey after she had that child herself. She hid him until she couldn't hide him any longer. He got bigger. And so what she did was create a plan. And she wove a basket and covered it with pitch so that it would be waterproof, pretty much. And she put the baby in it and put him in the bulrushes right near the river where the Pharaoh's daughter bathed every morning with her entourage of assistants and help. Well, the princess found him, fell in love with this beautiful Hebrew baby, probably with curls and brown curls and big brown eyes. She named him Moses, and she raised him as her own son. Moses was raised as a member of the royal family, and he got the best education available, which was with the Egyptian priesthood. The priests were guardians of all the knowledge, including science and everything else like that. Moses learned mysticism and metaphysics and all the spiritual laws that were known at the time. He learned about agriculture and astronomy and architecture, psychology, and on and on and on. He always knew, however, that he was a Hebrew, that he was related to these people who are now slaves. And he felt a deep connection with them somehow. But his upbringing and his education had trained him to just assume his position, kind of puffed up with himself. He assumed his power and privilege. He was an egotistical, probably, young man, rather than a wise young man. What he certainly was not trained in, however, was self-discipline. One day he saw an overseer beating a Hebrew who was trying to make bricks or something. And a sense of just rage enveloped him. He just came over me, went over and dragged that overseer away from the Hebrew and beat on him until he killed him. And then he buried that overseer in the sand so nobody would see him, his body at any rate. And he was in great hopes that nobody, perhaps the other slave that was being beaten, nobody else would know. It would go unnoticed. When he discovered that he had been not only seen, but the news of what he had done was being spread abroad, he fled for his life to Midian, where he came under the protection of a priest by the name of Reuel. Reuel had 7 daughters, and he was a wise man. Dr. Fox says that 7 daughters stand for the 7 main aspects of God. Now, Fox's 7 main aspects or attributes of God are just a little different from the ones that you find in the Divine Science textbook. But there, God's attributes are named as wisdom, love, power, life, knowledge, understanding, and joy. Dr. Fox says that for each and every one of us, there is one of these attributes that's easier, that's more compatible with us, and something that we can realize and therefore concentrate on expressing more than the other ones. I thought that was an interesting idea, that one of these, wisdom, love, power, life, knowledge, understanding, joy, one of these speaks to us. And we're just stronger at it. That is what we should seek to express as much as we can. Now Moses marries Reuel, the priest's oldest daughter, and she bears him 2 sons. And as Dr. Fox points out, in the Bible, marriage is always a symbol for the union of God and man. Moses makes himself useful. He becomes the shepherd for all of Reuel's many flocks, or his large flocks. And his many years of solitude as a shepherd provide him with a time alone with God where he begins to correct his egotism, correct and tame his temper. He had a bad temper. And also sharpened his desire for an intimate relationship with God. We always have to spend quiet time with God in meditation and prayer before we can really change our thinking, before we can face our faults, and certainly before we can begin experiencing the presence of God, which was always what was intended, that we should know God intimately. Well, that's what Moses was doing in these real quiet times with the sheep. And also, while shepherding Reuel's sheep, he arrived at the place where he saw the burning bush. And God spoke to him and explained to him that he was the one who was going to deliver his people, the people of Israel, from slavery in Egypt. Well, Moses wanted no part of that. He made excuse after excuse, but after a while, he agreed, finally. Well, now we have to fast forward. We have to fast forward past his confronting Pharaoh, past all the plagues, past Pharaoh's refusal to let the people go, past the deaths of the firstborn of all the Egyptians, and then finally Pharaoh letting the people go into the wilderness to worship God. And then Hebrews leaving, and they're going through the Red Sea on dry land, and all the armies coming after him. Pharaoh changed his mind, coming after him and his people to bring them back, and they're being all wiped out when the waters came back. We're still fasting forward, though, past the manna that the people had to eat in the morning, and the quails they were provided by God in the evening, and a pillar of clouds by day and the pillar of fire by night that led them in the right direction, and Moses finding water in the wilderness so that the people could drink and get water that they needed. And then gradually we slow down from this fast forward and stop when we get to Mount Sinai, because that's the place where they're supposed to worship God. What the people find at Mount Sinai scares them to death, because the Bible says that the people stood at the nether part of the mount, far away as they could get from the mountaintop, because the top of the mountain was covered with smoke and fire and loud trumpets, no less, and earthquakes. The earth was shaking under their feet. God was unmistakably there, and he called Moses to the top of the mountain, not the people. The people wouldn't go. He called Moses to the top of the mountain, and Moses alone went up the mountain to hear God's voice. God gives the 10 Commandments to Moses through spiritual inspiration. He must have been thinking about it a lot. He must have been pondering it, but it came through spiritual inspiration, and when he came down from the mountain, he had these 10 Commandments. And Moses and God designed them to be both simple and profound, so that they could help both the many uneducated, unsophisticated, simple people who took everything literally at face value, just what it said, that was what it meant. And then the relatively few people who were more spiritually oriented, who perhaps were more sophisticated, more educated, perhaps, who needed a deeper meaning within these commandments. Interestingly, Dr. Fox doesn't start with the first commandment when he starts talking about the commandments. He starts with the 5th commandment, thou shalt not steal. Now that's a rule that everybody knows, because the vast majority of people respect and obey that idea, not to steal, because there's so much trouble if you do. There is plenty of trouble. But Fox tells us that there is a deeper meaning in the 5th commandment. It isn't just thou shalt not steal, but thou canst not steal. You cannot steal, not really. In other words, nobody can successfully steal for someone who has, by virtue of their spiritual consciousness, their conviction that God is present in everything, everyone, everywhere, all the time. You cannot steal, you cannot take anything from that person. Dr. Fox says that to be healthy, you have to have a health consciousness. To be prosperous, you have to have a prosperity consciousness, where you have an inner assurance, that expectation of good, that feeling that it's going to be fun, it's going to be okay. Or maybe you had studied, you had a lot of success and experience with money or stocks or whatever. It's just part of your comfort zone. You're going to do fine. That's an abundance consciousness. To be successful really in any field, you have to have the consciousness that corresponds to that field. You cannot keep what is not part of your routine, comfortable thinking. What you don't have mentally and emotionally and spiritually ownership of. It isn't part of your expectations. For instance, you could pretend to be an expert, but you can't get away with it without doing the studying and the reading and the work that goes along with being an expert in something. To try to do that is stealing. You can't pretend to be rich when you've almost broke, or a name dropper, Oh, my good friend, so-and-so, the Nobel laureate. And the fact is that you shook his hand one time. That's stealing. And it never succeeds. After a while, people look right through you, but the truth is thou canst not steal. Now, I'm going to try to describe what consciousness is. On Wednesday nights, we've been reading and discussing a book called The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. And the very first page has a very good description of consciousness. And so I wanted to read it to you. It's not long. And it's called The Voice Inside Your Head. Shoot, I can't remember her name. What is her name? Darn, here she comes. What is it? Sally? Sue? She just told me yesterday. What's the matter with me? This is going to be embarrassing. In case you haven't noticed, you have a mental dialogue going on inside your head that never stops. It just keeps going and going and going. Have you ever wondered why it talks in there? How does it decide what to say, when to say it? How much of what it says turns out to be true? How much of what it says is even important? And if right now you are hearing, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't have any voice inside my head. That's the voice we're talking about. If you're smart, you'll take the time to step back, examine this voice, and get to know it better. Problem is, you're too close to be objective. You have to step way back and watch it converse. While you're driving, you hear the internal conversation like, wasn't I supposed to call Fred? Oh, I should have. Oh my God, I can't believe I forgot. He's going to be so mad. He may never speak to me again. Maybe I should stop and call him right now. I don't want to start the car right now. Notice that the voice takes both sides of the conversation. It doesn't care which side it takes, just as long as it keeps on talking. When you're tired and trying to sleep, it's the voice inside your head that says, what am I doing? I can't go to sleep yet. Oh, I forgot to call Fred. I remembered in the car, but I didn't call. If I don't call now, wait, it's way too late. I shouldn't call now. I don't even know why I thought about it. I've got to fall asleep. Oh shoot, now I can't fall asleep, and I'm not tired anymore. But I have a big day tomorrow, and I have to get up early. No wonder you can't sleep. Why do you even tolerate that voice talking to you all the time? It's an interesting description, huh? All of us have that voice going on inside of our heads all the time. In divine science, what we're always trying to do is to make sure that that constant little dialogue in it is positive. We try to make ourselves certain that it's a kind voice. It's loving. It's loving especially to ourselves, and it's loving to other people too. We try to be careful in avoiding fearful dialogue. resentful thinking, being critical or maybe unforgiving of people, getting caught in the broken record syndrome where we go over and over and over some unsettling or angry interchange with somebody. We make a real effort in divine science to fill our thoughts instead with gratitude, understanding. We try to be patient. We look for the good. And with effort, that inner dialogue can pretty much stay positive and loving, peaceful, kind. That inner voice, some people call the monkey mind. That's a pretty apropos description of it, that never shuts up, can become our friend, can become our happy companion. This is what we call a positive consciousness, unlike the one that was described in the book, which is just an average consciousness. But when we still that incessant voice inside our heads with prayer and meditation, with affirmations, or we just peacefully, silently acknowledge the omnipresence of a divinity that is all good, that is all blessing, that is all helpful and loving. That presence right within and all around us. We are not just blessing and benefiting the body and the mind and the emotions, but we are creating a spiritual consciousness that knows that as God's image, we are success. We are health, life. We are prosperity. We are irreplaceable. Nobody can take our place in this world. We are powerful, more powerful than we dream. We are loved. We are peaceful. That is a spiritual consciousness. And nothing can be stolen from that consciousness. So, we have a choice. Pays your nickel, you take your choice. Do we want just that, the ordinary consciousness? Or, goodness knows, we don't want the negative consciousness, where we are thinking angry, fearful, negative thoughts all the time. We don't want that, no. A positive consciousness, is that what we choose? Filling our thoughts with loving, kind, spiritual, perhaps somewhat spiritual thoughts? Or do we want to move up to that spiritual consciousness from whom no one can take anything of meaning except good example, except blessings, except health? It's our choice. Thou canst not steal. Nobody can take anything from us if we live or seek to live as much as possible in that spiritual consciousness. It's our choice. Let's go with it. And give thanks that we know the difference. We see the difference. We understand what consciousness is. It's our habitual thinking. And we can move into that legacy that God has given us. The knowledge that we are His own. We are beloved. We are safeguarded. We are gently led. All we have to do is turn to Him. All is well when we could put God at the forefront of our mind. Thank you, beloved Father, Mother God, that it is so. Amen. Oh, and now it is time for the blessing of the gifts. Shall we read the blessing of the gifts together, please? Today, I acknowledge God, omnipresent, as the source of all good, as the source of my good. With this acknowledgement, I accept His will, which is abundance in every aspect of my life. I release all thoughts of lack and limitation, and I am open and receptive to the increased flow of abundance to me right now. I joyfully accept the gifts of life, and I give freely of the special gift that I am. Through me, God omnipresent blesses and multiplies this gift for all. Thank you, dear God. And now for those many people who are seeing us through the internet, I'd ask if you would consider sending a gift to our church, $3 maybe, or $5, and help to continue our ministry, because there are many people who are having to stay home because of the coronavirus, and your help would be of such great help. We thank all of you for your gifts and tithes that make everything we do possible. And now, shall we go within just for a moment of blessing to close our service? Beloved Father, beloved friend, beloved companion, beloved guide, beloved source of wisdom and protection and peace and love. We give thanks for you in your presence wherever we are, for your presence is everywhere. We seek to keep you at the forefront of our minds, because you are the purpose, you are the reason, you are the goal, the spiritual goal within us. To learn, to love, to serve, to help. We are here to learn those wondrous lessons, and we are. And we give you thanks for this opportunity. So it is today, so it is every day of our lives. Amen.